Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the village board meeting to order. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Here.
Trustees Cook,
Here.
Oppenheim,
Aye. Here.
Takaoka,
Here.
Hebda. Here. Schultz,
Here.
Markort.
Here.
Motion carries. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any citizens that wish to address the board tonight on anything other than what's on committee of the whole? Because on committee of the whole, you can obviously participate. So, anybody? Okay. Okay. Yeah, sure. Just identify yourself and,
Hi, everyone. My name is Abe Vaisaki. I'm a new resident here. I just moved here about a year ago. I'm from Minnesota, grew up in Iowa. And I first want to start by saying thank you for giving me the time to talk to you all. Thank you to John, who once I moved here was very helpful because there's a number of things I wanted to be involved with, and he was helping me a bunch with emails and all these different things. So thank you. Before I moved here, I was living in Norway. I was active in student politics, so I was the national president of an organization that worked for the interests of 25,000 international students in the country. We worked on a number of things. We worked on embassy partnerships with students. We worked on funding for exchange students that were coming from developing countries. And we, as Norway's free education, we made sure that international students still had free education as well, so they had equal opportunities. From this experience, I kind of moved back, and I realized like youth have a really high capacity for being involved and being engaged, and there's a lot that they can do. And I think a lot of times we have adults and different people speaking for youth, but we don't have youth speaking for themselves. So I did some research, and I looked at a couple different sources and saw that there's a lot of different like city youth councils, village youth councils, and state youth councils that are happening across the country. Iowa has a state one. They also have different city level youth councils that work alongside the city or the village. That's kind of the adult version. And there are a lot of research that I found from the National League of Cities, the Forum for Youth Investment, and it basically had this idea that like if you get a youth council going on at your village, your city, or your state, like you're getting a popular and effective way to get more youth involved in solving local problems and being engaged with the community. So their actions can affect positive change. They know how to navigate the system to find solutions to local problems that affect them. And really it builds on this idea of youth contributing to the community and then the community contributing to the youth. So it's two sides of the same coin. So what I'd like to do then is get a youth council with the Village of Vernon Hills. Some of the work they do would be like submitting recommendations about juvenile crime prevention, job opportunities for youth, recreational activities for teenagers, and really any topic that has to do with like social, educational, recreational needs of children and youth in Vernon Hills. So the steps that I take to this program would be 6 steps really, and I can expand on them if you have any questions afterwards, but be looking at the size of how the program would be, what type of age should be, the funding, though would be mainly volunteer-based, providing a supportive work environment, building youth capacity, deepening youth motivation, and lastly, negotiating opportunities for access. So I think if we follow these 6 steps and kind of build off the research and kind of the already existing councils that are present in other states other than Illinois, I think the youth and in the village of Vernon Hills will have a lot better voice. I think it'll improve their standing, and I think it will improve the community. So Thank you, and I'd love to discuss creating some type of commission or committee for this.
Okay. Good. Trustee Schultz?
I guess what makes this different than, say, the student council at Vernon Hills High School and getting them to be more proactive, lack of a better word?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could build off the council there, but this would be a council that would work more closely with the actual village board here. So a lot of different city youth councils across the U.S., they're housed in the city hall themselves, and then they have this access to the staff and the elected officials, so that they can kind of bring about more change. And not only that, but we're looking at issues outside of high school as well. So issues like, let's say they're like, hey, I don't like that Vernon Hills is doing this with the environment. Then they're gonna kind of follow up with that.
So you're looking for a broader, you're looking from tweens to college age,
Well,
early 20s?
Yeah, a lot of the councils I've seen were mainly high schoolers, so like freshman, sophomore, and junior year. And I think that's a good age because they're preparing to go to college. This would be a really good opportunity, you know, to put on college applications as well.
That kind of gets me back to, have you broached this with the high school?
No, I haven't.
Maybe that might be a good place to start then.
Okay. But I mean, it'd be more with the city than with the high school. And
Yeah,
of
but
course, like,
But we're almost,
yeah.
I mean, we're not in that we have students that go to Mundelein and also go to Stevenson, but the preponderance go to Vernon Hills High, and we could figure out a way to
Okay.
tap into Stevenson, and, but I think that might be a better,
Right. Okay.
I'm done.
Are you done? My name's Trustee Craig Takaoka. Number one, I think it's an awesome idea, personally. Here's why. I think people, and I didn't understand really, the effect one could have being on a village board. And before I took on this, this position back in April, pursuing this position, I had no idea. I think my question is, how would you determine, let's say you had 20 kids that wanted to get involved, how are you going to choose? That would be my first question. Number two, would you help organize it and sort of head up a commission, so to speak, if in fact we were able to establish something? Number three, I think that, an idea that would come to mind would be having maybe this person or persons sit in on one meeting a month, just so they can see what happens within a village, how a village is run. And I think really beyond high school, Jim, I think something outside of, the high school environment, I think it would be great.
Yeah.
So I personally would support further discussion on creating something to get youth involved on the village level.
Trustee Cook?
It'd be definitely worth looking into. Annually, we do a student council village board meeting that brings students from not just the high schools, but several of our middle schools around here as well. And they have a mock board meeting, so we've always been involved in trying to get kids involved as much as possible. So I agree with Trustee Schultz. It might be a good place to start would be with the high school, because they could identify for you some of the core student leaders, and maybe by having something outside of high school, we can then also draw in some of the students that for whatever reason don't get involved in the actual student government in the high school, but would be willing to be involved working in the school. So I would say go ahead and pursue it.
And what we could do is bring it back, discuss it at a true committee at a whole meeting, so.
Okay. Did you want me to answer your questions, or?
Yes?
Okay. So I looked at the application process of a couple different councils. Normally what happens when you start it is you build kind of a volunteer board of parents, teachers, city officials that take in applications, and then they decide, and then after the youth have submitted an application, then they go from there. And then the second question was, what?
Youth
Yeah, I'd love to be involved with it. I mean, overall, I think there will need to be some oversight by like that adult board, because I think there needs to be investment in the youth so that they're developing as teens and not just like putting all of this work into policymaking, but also they get a lot out of it, and that they're not putting too much time into this where it affects their studies. And then I forgot the third question as well. You're like, I might have too.
Yeah, just, having them get involved and sit in on board meetings,
Yeah. And I think that'd be great.
anything that, youth, there are youth out there that would definitely would want to get involved. So,
Yeah.
Like the mayor said, we should definitely discuss this more in depthly
Yeah.
at one of our committee of the whole.
Well,
meetings.
whenever you're ready, call
Yeah.
John Calmer.
Yeah.
They have a more in-depth study
Okay, so
and
then,
discussion.
okay. So then what would you recommend, like, steps moving forward then?
Trustee Hebda.
Just, Abe, so you're aware too, not only at the city, at the municipal level, but you've got county level, you've got Vernon Township, Libertyville. So those are some other areas too that we might want to look at including as well, since that expands beyond and there might be some interest at that level of government too. So we'll, open that up for discussion as well, so.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and you're A,
Yep.
Abe?
Or Abraham, whichever.
whatever you prefer.
Abraham, sure.
Okay, Abraham. All right, well, thanks for coming in. We'll see you in a, couple of weeks or a couple of meetings from now,
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
take care. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, next item is Life-Saving Award, Officer Joe Reyna. You gonna take care of this? Speak? Okay. Is Joe's here?
Officer Joe and Officer Ken James. Figure if we'll do both of these together. So I have here Officer Joe Reyna and Officer Ken James. Both Officer Reyna and Officer James have been serving the Vernon Hills Police Department for about 16 years. And I think it's important at a time when there
They
is...
want to take the pictures up here
You can come back
of the,
behind us.
instead of the back of their heads?
I think it's important at a time when there is great public scrutiny on the actions of police officers, that sometimes that scrutiny is for negative conduct. I think we shouldn't overlook the daily work that police officers do, and in this case, some monumental work that was done. So I'd like to point out that it's important that we recognize that both Joe Reyna and Officer Ken James are up here, but and they were instrumental, but there's actually a cycle of public support that went along with this, and it starts with our telecommunicator, and we have Leanne back there. Leanne DePaul was the person that answered the phone and started this cycle. Officers Reyna and James were also supported by other police officers at the scene. I know Officer Ryan Yeager was at the scene. And then once they did what they did, they transfer this to the fire EMS system that furthers that aid, gets them into the hospital system, and we really work well together as a team. But most importantly, tonight, it's important to recognize that there's a young man, a 22-year-old man that's alive today because of your actions, and you're to be commended on for that. So I'd like to read this award, please, into the record. This is for Officer Joe Reyna and Officer Ken James. On Friday, July 21, 2017, you responded to a call for a possible drug overdose at the skate park. Upon your arrival, you found a 22-year-old male victim who had gone from seizing to full respiratory arrest. Without hesitation, you and Officer James, both Officer James and Officer Reyna, administered a combination dosage of 3 doses of naloxone and monitored the victim's vital signs until paramedics could arrive. Due to your efforts, the victim was fully conscious upon the ambulance's arrival, and he was transported to the hospital having admitted to using heroin prior to the call. If not for your decisive action, the outcome could have been drastically different. You played a vital role in saving this patient's life and are to be commended for your life-saving efforts. Thank you for a job well done. The last thing I'd like to point out is that we have their awards for them, and in Officer Reyna's, in Officer James' case, this is his second life-saving award since he served with the police department, and in Officer Reyna's case, this is his fourth life-saving award. So again, these officers are more than happy to do the role of an enforcer and take someone to jail if they need to go to jail, but just as important, they're out there to help anyone in our community that needs it at any time. So, again, thank you.
Either you guys want to say anything?
Yeah.
Sure.
Leanne DePaul did an excellent job. She put us in a position where we can make a difference. With her dispatching is really what made things work out as good as it did.
Sure.
And like the chief said, it started with her and was a team effort. I'd like to thank all our partners for coming out here again to support us to receive this life-saving award.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. You want to start with these two youths to just let them sit up here now and hang up here with us? Or, no?
They like the idea.
Okay, well, that's nice. All right. Okay. Assistant Village Manager, Oktoberfest and Hurricane Relief.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a reminder, once again, the 13th Annual Oktoberfest is coming up this Saturday on September 23rd. Again, this year it's occurring from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Vernon Hills Metro Station, which the address for that, for those who might not be aware, is 75 Route 45 in Vernon Hills. Again, we'll be having free face painting, free kids crafts, a free hayride brought to you by the Park District, as well as inflatables, a balloonist, and the always popular pumpkins, which go quick. So we always encourage parents to bring the little ones first thing, because even though we purchased 500 pumpkins for the event, somehow they get swallowed up quick, fast. So please come early and stay long. So a lot of free events and activities, as well as some evening entertainment. This year we have the VHR Band, which stands for Vernon Hills Rocks, which will be performing from 5:30 to 7, as well as the B-Side Band, which will be taking place from 7 to 10 p.m., both of which are Vernon Hill local bands who have performed in town for a variety of events. So we're looking forward to having some local events performing. Again, this year, we'll also be having food and other events, other items being sold by our local nonprofit organizations for their own fundraisers. Those include the Senior Organization, Sports for All, the Lions, and the Scouts. And certainly, last but not least, as a reminder, this event as part of this event, we'll be doing a fundraiser for the American Red Cross for hurricane relief for those impacted from both Hurricane Irma and Harvey, as well as any other future hurricanes that may be on the horizon. We will be providing fundraising, a matching donation of up to $5,000 that will go solely to the American Red Cross. And we certainly encourage individuals to donate and encourage everyone to come to the event. We'll have buckets at the ticket counter as well as at the beer table. And we also have donation buckets available at Village Hall, which we will have in place until October the 11th. So again, any questions, certainly feel free to let us know. Otherwise, information is available on our website.
Okay. All right, let's see here. 13th Annual Law Enforcement, Chief Priest.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank the community for all its support. We had a wonderful event. at Hawthorne Mall last weekend. 26 different law enforcement agencies from the area participated. That means they brought in their vehicles Friday night. They staffed it all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and we had just a terrific turnout. A lot of positive engagement with young and old enjoying those opportunities. The canine demonstrations were a particular hit with large crowds gathering. I think we gave a total of 5 different demonstrations. Illinois State Police was in there with their motorcycle. It always gets a lot of attention, and kids climbing all over it. So it was, again, a wonderful event. My first event to be able to participate in. I was there both days, and I was just completely impressed. Special thanks goes out to our crime prevention officer, Kim Christensen, who many of you know is a retired police officer, and now does this really with a lot of passion. So we're lucky to have him. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through F?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Marport,
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is approval of special village board meeting minutes of September 7th, 2017.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Comments, questions, corrections, deletions? If none, roll call.
Trustees Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Abstain.
Marport,
Aye.
Cook,
Abstain?
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Motion carries. B, approval and passage of ordinance number 2017-098, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the Village of Vernon Hills, County of Lake, State of Illinois for the fiscal year beginning 4/1/2017 and ending April 30th, 2018, in the amount of $4,216. Is there a motion to approve?
So made.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Can
Any
I-
comments?
Yeah.
Any comments or questions?
Can I ask a question? I'm just curious. What was the oversight here?
This is germane to the charity golf event, the Shirley Ryan Ability Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
It
saw,
was the expense of, putting it on. We always budget,
okay.
but, apparently we probably should have budgeted about $7,000.
Okay.
But, I think a total, what was the total that was raised, Nikki?
16.
Close to $16,000 for the charity.
Yeah, so, that's what it's for.
Okay.
And we had Dave Smith out there, from town, and he's obviously, he had a problem, and he does still have a problem, but he's doing quite well. I mean, and he's been down, obviously even before this, he was at the Chicago Rehabilitation Institute, so he was out. And in fact, they played golf with him, so he was okay. I mean, not to play everything, but he was pretty good at putting, so. Okay, we got a motion and a second? Okay, roll call.
Trustees Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Marport,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Any new business to come before the board? Do we want to announce the senior event? Senior banquet?
It's just a sign up for the board members.
Yeah, well, what's that? It's October.
This- the-
Yeah, I mean, it's October 18th, 2017, and we're going to go, where are we going, White Deer?
White Deer one.
Okay. All right. If nothing else, I'd like to call, is there a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
So made.
Motion,
Second.
second. roll call?
Closed session, Your Honor.
Are we going in?
We will go into closed session for land acquisition.
Okay,
So-
is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, can we don't need to amend anything on the adjournment?
No.
No.
It's just, and we'll do it at the end of the committee of the whole, too, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, roll call.
Trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. I don't see one of the petitioners in the room, are they? Cy Taxman, is he here? Is he? Oh, it's pulled?
Be here.
It's pulled.
Okay, all right, well, all right, who's on first? No, who's on second? Rink in the Mall, are you?
No, minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the special committee of the whole meeting minutes of September 7th, 2017?
Motion to approve?
Was that a special meeting or just a normal meeting?
It was,
That was the
it
meeting,
was
yeah,
a
that-
special meeting
Is
because
the date.
we had to move the date from Tuesday to Thursday.
Thank you.
okay. Any other comments or questions, corrections, deletions? If not, we got a motion and a second?
No second.
Okay, who's the second?
I was the first, so who motioned it?
Will somebody want to make
I
a,
will second that.
okay, a roll call.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Abstain?
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Next item is the rink in the mall, consideration, and this will be handled by Joe Carey.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I
Yeah.
just had a brain cramp. I'd like to change my vote to abstain. Excuse me. Thank you.
Do we need anything more formal than that,
I don't
Patrick?
No, that's fine. He misspoke.
Yeah, okay.
A note from your mother would help.
Okay. All right, fine. Was it because you were in the North Woods?
I was not in town, correct.
Who's in the North Woods?
Dual citizenship. Okay, rink in the mall. Joe, you want to take this one?
Yes, sir. Representatives from Rink of the Mall and the Hawthorne Mall appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 6th to present their plans to occupy an existing inline space in Hawthorne Mall, seeking an approval of a special use permit to allow a children's recreational facility. The location of the mall is the site of the former Rue 21. This space is approximately 6,500 square feet and is located on the second floor adjacent to the food court. The space in question would hold an occupancy of 50 people, with 20 people in the rink, with approximately 30 additional people that could act as spectators as well. The actual rink itself would consist
Are the
of,
petitioners here?
yes, they are.
Do you want to come forward, please? Hi. You don't have to say anything yet, I mean, just wanted to cue you up.
So the rink itself actually consists of 56 panels. The rink will be approximately 1,200 square feet in size, and it's made up of a number of just a poly and minerals and graphite that are mixed together. That is actually a self-lubricating material. So no water or plumbing or electrical is actually required for the use. The use is being already done in existing malls and is being utilized in the at the Hancock Building downtown. I believe that's on the 96th floor, where there's no non-ice skating rink. The hours of operation will be consistent with the mall, with some adjustments. They are operating from 11 to 9 from Monday through Saturday, and 11 to 7 on Sunday. As noted in the report, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to 1, with Chairman Morris voting present. That was due to some questions he had involving a recreational use within the mall. It was discussed during the public hearing that this is not the only recreational use that has been put in place at the mall. There's been a number of those in the past, including the existing Dave & Buster's and the movie theater. But they did vote in favor of the approval for the special use permit. They did add certain conditions of approval. The most notable ones were the The last three items, which are children 10 years of age and younger must be chaperoned by an adult. They must provide storage locker for customers for personal items. This will allow individuals participating at the rink to be able to store their purses, shopping bags, and other items. And then lastly, just a request to have the fire district ensure that the capacity for that space can accommodate the 50 individuals that they're proposing to have ability to be in that place. So if the committee of the whole feels request is appropriate, it is recommended that staff be directed to prepare the necessary ordinance granting approval of a special use permit to allow children's recreational facility to be known as Rink at the Mall, to be located at 122 Hawthorne Center, Unit 532. And the approvals are subject to the conditions of approval that are in your packet, and the petitioners are here to answer any questions.
Is there any type of a blade you can't use there, for skates? Can people bring their own, or do you got to use yours?
Hockey skates are appropriate.
What's that?
Any hockey skates will be appropriate. The figure skates will not.
So that people can bring on hockey skates.
Pull the mics down.
Yeah, pull the mics down,
Yes, people can bring on hockey skates and skate on
And no
with their own
pucks or
skates.
sticks, though, eh?
Yes.
And we
Yes
will,
or no?
What was the question?
I said no pucks or sticks.
no pucks or sticks, yeah. And we will be providing skates free of charge to all the skaters,
If they don't have their own.
if they don't have their own,
Yes.
yes.
So it's the toe pick on the figure skates that's incompatible with your surface.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Otherwise, we'll make the whole.
Also, are you gonna like pump in artificial coldness like you really think you're walking into a rink?
No,
No? Okay. All
you
right,
can skate in shorts.
okay. All right. Anybody, trustee Schultz?
How do you do a hockey stop on this surface, or you don't?
It's like very familiar to real
similar.
ice,
Very
very similar to real ice, so do the same way.
Right, but doing a hockey stop, you wind up with your edges shaving.
Yes, and this shaving a little bit of the top of the material, which is needs like twice a day, just like regular, like I just wipe off that whatever is was
shaving, yeah.
that shaved was shaved during the skating. So
Now, have you ever done one of these facilities before?
No, but we work with X-Trace, we work closely with X-Trace Manufacturing. They will be supervising installation and operation. It's our first ice rink, but those rinks been installed throughout the United States.
Now,
and
have you been in
Europe.
the rink
Yeah.
and
Oh, yes. yes.
where?
So we were in the rink in St. Louis. They had the rink under the arch this past holiday season,
Sure.
so we visited them. They also had a hockey fundraising event in Hilton Hotel in Chicago.
Sheraton,
I'm sorry, Sheraton. We
in
provided
downtown
the address.
Chicago, Sheraton Hotel, we had a special hockey event. So the X-ray was providing the rink. So this is where we was present to see
To test
how
it.
to test it and see how.
Right,
that-
well, yeah, and I think there's a large facility, it's either in Highland Park or, I don't know, it's off of US 41 in Lake County, and it used to be an old indoor soccer facility, and that's, I don't know if that's a full rink or not, but I assume it has, it does have this kind of surface, because it's not a refrigerated rink like what we have in town, so. It's been around for what, 20 years, you think, this type of surface?
Oh, yes, definitely. They've been around for, even, John Hancock ice rink was installed in 2012, and they had a similar one in Peninsula Hotel, I believe it was in 2002. So it's been a while.
So
And
can you put this in your backyard if it goes to 10 below zero?
You can put it in your backyard or in your basement,
Okay.
yeah.
What is the 1,200 square feet of this cost? I mean, what's it gonna cost to put that, the actual surface down?
It's between 50 and 60,000.
Okay. I don't know, has anybody else got any questions?
Is there a limit? I'm sorry.
should.
limit the questions, maybe. I don't-
Maybe
I
from
don't-
you.
Okay.
I was just going to ask, how much do you charge? Is it by the hour, or is it you,
Yeah, we're $15 an hour.
$15 an hour? No.
That including the skate.
The skates, right?
Yeah, and we also will have like support, like a toy type support for little kids to use, and those
Oh, the
will
little
be provided, yeah, like a
chairs.
push
Yeah.
little chairs, yeah. And those will be provided free of charge as well.
Well, it's not as slippery as true ice.
I mean,
It's
the,
like probably like I say
90%.
90%. Because the self-lubricating with the manufacturer, they created the lubricant, which is release the lubricant once the blade goes over, so from the heat, so it release the lubricate. So really, like, the more you skate, the more.
But if you touch it with your hand, is it,
no, it
no.
feels like plastic.
okay, so it's not like a kid will hit the ice and lick their
No, no.
fingers and,
Yes,
It's very safe,
inside.
actually.
It's inside. So
Okay.
and the more people skates, the more is getting more slip. Like
the gliding
the
effect.
gliding
Effect.
effect is bigger.
okay, so you don't have a Zamboni?
Sounds like you have a broom or a squeegee or something, though, if they're shaving the surface slightly, doing
there is
hockey
a s-
stops or
There's
whatever.
a slight shaving of the surface, which you're required to clean at least twice a day to basically just swipe. And there is like a buffing machine that you use at the end of the day to buff the
Zamboni.
surface.
Yeah. How thick is the surface?
3/4 of the inch.
Okay. Trustee Markwart,
What is the age group that you?
So we will allow anybody over, as long as they are accompanied with an adult, 4 years and older can skate with an adult, 10 years and older. I mean, adults have to supervise. Little kids can skate as long as they can push the toy and stand on the skates. I mean, it will be
Does
up to
mom
you.
and dad have to
Yes,
be out there,
but
though?
the parents
Yeah,
will have
okay.
to accompany them.
all right. You got rental helmets?
We were not thinking that it's necessary because the real ice skate rinks don't require helmets, and this surface is even softer than the traditional ice. So we did not think it's necessary. I mean, if you recommend, we can definitely accommodate that. But the surface.
I'll defer to the doctor on that one, now that I've asked the
We do
question.
have a comparison analysis of the traditional ice compared to the synthetic ice, and it says that the surface is much softer, so it absorbs the fall and injury. There is less chance of injury than if you fall.
So it's
on a
not as bad
tradition-
as falling on
on a
concrete?
traditional, yeah, not as bad.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, again, okay, Dr. Oppenheim.
First of all, to that point, I would imagine that this is a much smaller space, isn't it, than the average ice rink?
Oh, yeah.
In
Yeah.
relation to it, so the speeds are going to be much lower,
Yeah, they will-
I would think. I was going to ask, it says here in our notes that there's an anticipated occupancy of up to 50 people in the entire facility, 20 on the rink and 30 spectators. Is there a safe number or a maximum that we're going to have?
This number was provided to us by the mall management, and the manufacturer confirmed that, for that size of the rink, 20 people can skate at the same time. So this
Right,
is
right.
this is how we came up with this 50 number based on the square.
Well, are you gonna have any
size.
concessions in there, like for snacks or get a
No,
drink?
no. We're right across from a food court, so it's
That's a
not
good point. Yeah,
necessary.
okay.
And we'll let them use the
And the
mall
people,
Yeah.
but you'll have some kind of tables, the
We'll have,
seating?
we're gonna have a seating, like benches for
Like a
parents.
bleachers, we're planning to
yeah.
be bleachers for the
So
seating.
Maybe can we show the?
Yeah, let's-
We have a 3D drawing of it.
I don't know, 6,500 square feet out of 1,200, you still gives you,
It's,
you probably put more bodies in there than that.
Oh, here we go.
What does the fire department say on this? I mean, can you, see, if you use it, is that their analysis, the 20 and 30?
Yeah, the space is 5,000 square feet, Joe, if I remember, and a little more than that, so,
I thought you said 6,500.
6,500.
oh, 6,500. So the permitted occupant load would be something north of 100. And then we would make sure, though, because it's a recreational / assembly use, that there's 2 exits out of the facility that are remote from each other.
But how's it decided, or does the village have any input into the maximum number of people who can actually be on the rink at one time?
There's no specific requirement that the village has for that. We just have a maximum occupant load based on the use and the size of the tenant space.
And that's why that's included as part of the conditions that the planning and zoning wanted, that the fire department review that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and this is no issue with the weight of this or anything on the existing floor?
No.
What does it weigh?
The weight, the total weight actually need to be calculated on total.
What's that?
I don't have exact number on the weight, on total weight.
Yeah.
So I need to do like each panel.
I mean, the thing's 1,000 pounds,
Oh, no.
the whole rink. Got to have some weight to it.
Hold on.
Yeah, it's not like a room full of refrigerators. right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that question was in the first meeting, and.
Did you answer it, or?
Yeah.
So we
I mean,
we can-
the structure of the mall is, there is a concrete base to the second floor of the structure, so it,
Is that all Spancrete in there, or? No? Probably steel, right under?
Yeah, it's reinforced concrete is what it is.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And really, the weight, most of the weight will come from the concentrated number of people that are on
Yeah,
top
okay,
of
well,
them.
all right. Okay, now, the existing floor in there is what? What's this kind of a floor is this gonna be?
Right now is painted concrete.
And that's what you're gonna use?
Yes, this is what we're gonna put over the rink, over the existing subfloor.
Okay, and that's per the manufacturer's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
But you're gonna have padded walkways, whatever, so they don't dull up their blades, walking from wherever, your locker space.
You know, like the rubbers, is that the rubber
Can I
flooring?
approach the commission? Can I?
Yeah,
so there's a rubberized area that you can see on the screen here that
Okay.
separates where the entrance to the ice rink, and that's kind of where you can put the skates on
Yeah,
and
look
then
at
walk
this,
into the rink.
okay, thank you. Okay. I don't know, anybody else? Trustee have the,
You said that children over the age of 10 do not need to be supervised by an adult, so you're going to have 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds that can go in there without any adult supervision.
We're gonna have staff that's
And
gonna,
staff will-
definitely,
Okay,
yeah.
because that's my only concern, when you get a
Yeah,
couple
we
of
have-
those.
we have two
As
boys,
you
so we
know,
know.
that those age groups can be
Yeah.
tough age groups, so. Just want
Absolutely.
to make sure that we don't have any issues with them as well.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming if they don't follow the rules, they would be disciplined or not allowed to return.
Absolutely.
what do you have, you have some staff on the ice? I mean, you know, on the surface, you know, hanging around
Yeah,
with the
that's
kids?
what we discussed in the initial meeting. We're gonna have, you know, on a weekday, when we're not expecting it to be that busy, we're gonna have one person basically intaking the customers for, you know, cashing them out and giving them skates, and one person is gonna be on the ice all the time, you know, getting them in and kind of, you know, skating around, making sure, you know, everything is in
Would
order.
anybody be capable of teaching like little kids to skate or anything, or?
So we were thinking about having some instructions, you know, having a set schedule, you know, if you want to come in for instructions, you know, those are the hours, but not you know, not on a regular basis. I mean, our staff will know how to skate, and if somebody needs help, we'll definitely
Right.
be able to provide help.
Okay. All right, well, any other questions from the board on this?
So we're looking for a.
Motion.
To direct staff to prepare the necessary ordinance to
With the-
accomplish this.
Yeah, with the three
with
caveats?
3 caveats.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor, with the 5 conditions of
5.
approval in your packet. yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, conditions 1, yeah, final approval, but yeah, okay, fine. So is there a motion to the extent?
So made.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markort.
Motion carries. So this will come back, what, our next meeting? John? Yes. Okay?
When do you anticipate opening, or what's your target date?
So we have 45 days from the final approval of the permit. So we have material on order, just waiting for key to be shipped.
Okay.
What's the exact date of what's the next meeting? October,
October 3rd is our next.
so October 3rd.
It depends on the permit process. Hopefully it goes smoothly and quick, so we can get ready quick.
For the,
And,
I mean, our
For
goal
the
is
hol-
for the
right, like
holidays,
the
Well,
definitely.
That
can
makes
you
sense.
facilitate them now, guys, or no?
No, they'll be able to submit for a building permit tomorrow.
Yeah, okay?
That
Yes.
sounds great.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome to Vernon Hills.
Good luck.
Thank you.
This isn't quite though the, glow-in-the-dark miniature golf though.
Will be unique.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. God. All right, next is your taxes pulled. Next is Wendy's.
No, Regency.
Oh, Reed, oh, okay. Why, hey, listen, can't we do Wendy's and Whirly Ball? Or do you want to beat this one? No, it's
a sign.
okay?
Yeah, it's just a sign.
All right. Is it a blade sign? Huh?
Well,
Is it a
it's,
blade sign?
it's the two multi-tenant freestanding signs that the board originally approved. They're requesting approval of design changes to them.
Okay, well, is the petitioner here, or?
Change. I want to know the change.
And I can give you a quick summary on that. Mike's going to put up a picture of, on the screen in front of you right there, it shows the location of the two signs in question. The first sign is indicated as sign number 1 in the upper right-hand corner of the drawing, and the second sign is in the lower left-hand corner, indicated as sign number 6. So that's the two signs we're talking about tonight. And this is what the proposed sign would look like. The sign would include Melody Farms identification located at the top with exposed half-inch white neon lettering on a black background. The white neon will portray 3 white stripes in each letter of Melody and a single white stripe in each letter of Farm. The tenant panels you see on the screen there are 1 foot 9 inches by 10 feet with brushed aluminum panel faces and a 1-inch black trim. The sign supports are made of a black post. You can see that to the left and the right of each drawing. And they include painted flat aluminum red and lighted stress corrugated aluminum made to look like a patchwork of vintage signs. The size of 285 square feet, the height of 25 feet, and the location of each sign would match what was previously approved by the village board. The number of tenant names displayed of 6 would also remain the same. Ordinance 2016-45 granted approval of a special use permit authorizing a plan unit development for this property. The ordinance included design approval for these signs. So tonight in your deliberation, the county needs to determine if the new signs change the content or intent of the PUD. If the county feels the new signs do change the concept or intent, then this matter should be referred back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for further review and reopening of the public hearing. If the county feels the changes are minor and support the overall intent of the PUD, then it would be appropriate to recommend an amendment to the approved ordinances. Staff in reviewing the material changes feel the changes to the signs do support the intent and concept of the PUD. The design and proposed materials are consistent with those originally approved by the village board. We are supportive of the changes as proposed before you.
These are all the names here.
If the council feels the changes are appropriate, it is recommended that staff be directed to prepare an ordinance amending ordinance 2016-45 to allow the design changes to the multi-tenant signs as set forth on the plans attached to your packet and as presented to you tonight. And a representative of Regency Centers is here to answer any questions that you might have.
So is this like a horizontal blade sign?
It's a double-face sign, Your Honor. They're freestanding.
So, okay, all right, so you can see them either direction.
Yeah, correct.
Right. This is what it was, right?
Here's the original approval of the
Oh.
board.
Yep.
And what color was it?
Hello? Okay.
Yep. What color was the original
That is a brushed aluminum with kind of a brushed steel color
steel,
with
right.
wood behind on the original logo.
Right.
We didn't feel that with that branding that's on there with the Melody Farm and the milk jug, the brand of Melody Farm has changed significantly since those were brought before you a year ago or so. The new brand with the 3 lines lends itself much more towards a contemporary feel and less of a farm feel, and that's why we went down the path of exploring a change to the sign because we felt it really encumbered the brand to keep it the way it was. It was very traditional the way it was. We wanted to do something new, something bold to match the architecture.
And the architecture, I hope, is not changed
Not at all.
from what you showed originally.
Not at all.
Trustee Cook.
That goes against what the whole concept was in the beginning. You were talking about being the old field, the farm field and everything. And I remember very specifically, we talked about the red quite a bit. I mean, I don't mind the new sign if you can go with the original color scheme in some way. But it's like we're totally changing the focus of everything.
The brand has 100% shifted from the very beginning, and we made that very clear throughout the process that we were trying to get more urban and do more contemporary things with all the buildings. None of those buildings have changed. G1 has been updated.
Yeah, well, I can help here. You know, with the original submittal, the original branding had what I would describe as an industrial or a deconstructed warehouse feel to it. And as the plans developed from concept stage through the public hearing process, some of the buildings add some more of a kind of a retro hip feel to the architecture, and that's ultimately what was before the village board for final approval. So when you look at this sign, it lends itself more to the retro hip 50s look and matches some of the architecture. When you look at this sign, it lends itself more to the deconstructed warehouse look and also matches the architecture. So it's really, the buildings are going to remain as approved originally by the village board, but it's a question of which sign the board prefers.
And again, I don't have a problem with the new design. The new design is fine. A pylon sign is a pylon sign is a, you know, I mean, it's a stack of names.
We felt strongly. We felt very strongly that, in your words, we agree with, that the old sign was a stack of names and very predictable, very much what you would expect to find in a suburban shopping center. What sets the tone of this center and what we've always envisioned is to, when you cross over the threshold, when you pull in off of 21 or 60, it's different. It's different than any suburban shopping center you've ever been to. And we felt that the brand needed to change, the signs needed to change, the colors needed to change, and the brand, as you can see here, the Melody Farm brand, you guys have seen that a bunch of times.
I'm with you on everything except the bright red.
Yeah, well, you know, but bright red for a farm, it's
like a
looks
barn.
looks like a barn, you know.
And it's not going to be, there will be tones of red,
mean, you know, we
but it
got-
will not be all bright red. It's
I mean, we got,
painted signage.
muted colors kind of all over town, you know. I mean, this is different, and I don't have a problem with it, but, you know. Huh?
Chet likes muted colors.
Yeah, well, Chet's not here, so, you know. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, but, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Why don't we just weigh in? Doc, what do you think?
Well, I wasn't intimately involved like the rest of you were for the
Well, your
development
opinion
of this.
counts, though, because you
No,
get the vote.
I appreciate that. It's just that, to me, I sort of think it's a step back. I think it makes it look more like any other development in Chicagoland instead of less like any other development. I think the original sign with the milk jug on top and the muted colors, it makes it look more farmy, old-fashioned, as opposed to a trying to be a hip kind of thing, and just like any other center. I'm not so keen on the font or the typeface or whatever, the Melody Farm. I don't know if that's such a farm-like, even though I guess the original one wasn't so fancy. The other one does look more, I guess, retro, and Miami Beach-like, but not so much suburban Chicago farmland-like.
Which one's, this one's Miami Beach? The red one?
Yeah. The font itself with the three.
Gives me a-
The typeface.
Okay. Trustee Schultz?
I guess, well, just ask my wife, she'll tell you I have no taste, so my vote really doesn't.
Why don't you put your wife on the phone then?
Point well, she may still be at work, only working 2 days a week.
Uh,
Anyway,
My opinion's-
I guess the new sign really does call out a little better the individual stores or
I agree with that.
entities. So I guess I give it kudos for that. But I don't really care. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's a sign, and I'm sorry, I almost burst out laughing when you went through this whole thing about the brand and how, it's whatever. I guess I have to agree a little bit. The Melody Farms is a little less readable, I think, with this kind of individual structured lettering. But again, whatever the majority wants, I'm in line with.
Trustee Cook?
No, it's me, Roger. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just
We're
going,
going down the-
this is just polling, you know?
Yeah, I've said my.
Okay. And I said what I said, I don't mind it. Trustee
The Melody Farm is going to be neon lit, correct, at all times?
That is correct. There will be white behind the
Behind the
tubes, so, during the daytime, you're not going to see
You're not
white
gonna see it.
neon, but you'll see the white behind that'll accentuate the letters.
It won't flash, will it?
It will not flash.
Thank you.
No.
Okay.
Unless the bulbs
And-
have to
and
be replaced.
It should be, it's worth noting, we've done a ton of homework relative to the
Oh, I know, and I
feasibility
know
of
you
this.
showed me the one example that I
The
looked
Brooklyn
at, the
sign that
Brooklyn
we
sign.
took some of
And
this
I
from off the
understand that
hotel.
you're trying to make the architecture more urban, which I mean, if both new trustees were to see the architecture, it's amazing. It really is amazing architecture. So, and I do agree with Schultz that you're going to see these names more than you would on the existing sign. If you can tone that red down.
Absolutely. So what we
That-
showed you guys, and I'm happy,
So
I don't.
you bring me a
to show
palette
you
of
that.
colors and I'll look at those.
They're gonna
I
be
don't-
all
I
hand-
don't want to see it on a piece of paper. I want to see a palette of color. Michael, did you hear me? A palette of colors.
We'll have that available for you.
Noted. What you should understand is the red itself will be a patchwork of corrugated metal.
Then you do the corrugated and you do the patchwork and send it to Mike.
It will be.
You do the patchwork, you paint it, send it to Mike and I'll look at it.
So we have one, it's going to be a patchwork, so lots of different pieces, and each piece is going to be hand-painted to look like an old
Bring me
vintage
a
sign.
little piece.
We'll do one piece, we'll get it
One little
hand-painted,
piece,
we'll take a
and I can
picture,
take a look
we'll
at
send it around.
Thank you. Not a picture, I want to see it. I want
It's a big piece of metal.
No, just give me a little piece.
There's no way to do a little piece. You would
Well,
either
then
get a
bring
big
in-
piece or you can have a picture.
Michael, work it out with him.
We'll work it out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask, what prompted you to spend all this time on a new sign? Why, after it was all established?
I think
The,
I've been involved in the project since day one, and from a design standpoint, we care an awful lot to make sure it's right.
Yeah.
One of the things I can bring the board or the committee of the whole up to speed on is just what we're doing relative to layering the project outside of architecture, outside of landscape architecture, outside of concrete. We're going to be adding lots of custom-made layers to this project. And we felt like the original sign didn't do our new brand with the 3 lines, et cetera, justice. We felt like given the high-class architecture, right around the same time we redesigned the G1 building to be better than it was before, we took a hard look at all the signage throughout the entire project. And that's, when we get to the end here, I want to talk about the amendment process that the commissioner brought up. But we wanted to take the time. We didn't like it. We showed it to tenants. It was not fitting our pitch when we're talking with tenants, whether they're local tenants, whether they're regional tenants, whether they're national tenants. it was too predictable. People looked at it and they said,
Yeah. Okay.
do something bold, do something different. And that's why we came up with this proposal. Relative to the neon, we've got a full 5-year warranty on the neon. The company that's going to be building this sign for us, Right Way Signs, they have their own neon glass blower. They've done all the new neon you see up and down Fulton Market, all in their homegrown Chicago. The guys who are going to be building this, it's all Chicago guys. We're thrilled that they've been able to come up with a system to be able to give us a 5-year warranty on neon. You don't see neon on suburban shopping centers. It
No, you
calls
don't
out
see
as
it
a
anywhere in
different-
Vernon Hills either.
That's correct. That's why we're standing here.
Yeah.
Go look at the Town Line Commons and you'll see the neon there.
I know, but I mean, it's,
And go look
for
at
the
the
most
gas
part,
stations, you'll see the
you know.
neon there.
yeah.
Respect your, absolutely, I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing, so thank you.
Okay,
My comment to it is, I actually like it. Old design, previous, blah. This one, again, when you relate to farm, I think of a red barn. It does. The individual stores, the sign, it sticks out. So actually, and I do like the neon. So I'm definitely a yes on this.
okay, trustee Takayoko.
You know, just like Dave, we weren't involved initially, but this is 100,000 times better than the initial sign. I totally agree with you. When you have, I see stack signs in every, suburban strip center, and this definitely showcases the brands, like you said, and yeah, this is excellent. So, and we definitely want a more urban feel because you got to change it up a bit. You don't just want to be you don't want to be like Skokie where you got all these strip centers with the standard signs stacked on top of each other. And from the brand perspective, I can definitely see why, you could see the brand. And I showed 10 people this, 9 out of 10 would say this blows away that initial. So appreciate your efforts in changing up your plan.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yes.
How much does one of these signs cost you? How much is one?
All of it, all the way in,
Curious, what?
it's 6 figures. It's over $100,000 each sign.
okay, all right.
Relative to process, Your Honor, we are going to be coming back before you to talk about directional signage within the project. Was never approved originally because we didn't have a sense of where we wanted to put it. We're putting together that proposal. We felt that the original sign package in the PUD does allow for neon. It specifically calls out neon. We understand why the commissioner wanted to bring this back before you because of the extreme design change and to make sure everybody weighed in. But we can have a sidebar about this with the village attorney to talk about if what we'd like to do is put these things into production pretty quickly and not wait for an amendment because we know we're going to need to do an amendment to allow directional signage within the project to begin with. And we felt like the design you guys needed to see to look at, but relative to the need for a formal approval document, I think we differ a little bit.
Can I suggest that the board vote on this matter?
Sure.
At first, and then that question can be answered?
Are you looking for a motion to direct staff to create an ordinance here or a change?
Yes, that's correct. To prepare an ordinance amending ordinance 2016-045 to allow the design changes to the multi-tenant signs as set forth in the plan attached to your packet and is presented tonight.
So made.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If none, roll call.
Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook.
I like the design better, so aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, you're done.
No,
No?
did you?
Well, you heard the board direct staff unanimously to prepare an ordinance that ultimately will approve those signs. So I think that gives you the message you need to hear as far as starting to make the sign.
Fair enough. So we're not duplicating on attorney's fees, et cetera, and doing 2 different amendments since we know we're going to be coming back to you guys over the winter for directional signage. Would the board be okay if we just lump this all together so we just do it in one clean document for signage rather than doing it twice?
Well, what I'm going to recommend to the board, if the board agrees, is we'll go ahead and do the ordinance that you directed staff just now to do, and we'll put that on the October 3rd omnibus agenda. No attorneys need to be present for that.
Okay.
And then we're good to go. When you're ready for directional sign review, we'll prepare that and put that in front of the board for further review.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Whirly, is it Wendy's or Whirly Ball? Whirly Ball. New facade outside the door.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Wendy's is here?
They're here as well, yes.
Okay.
And as the petitioner walks up, on your screen is the aerial map of Whirly Ball, and it also shows the location of the front entrance. And those 3 walls to the front entrance is what's being considered tonight. Whirly Ball is proposing to remove the existing faux brick, which is shown there on the picture in front of you, and replace that with a metal ribbed panel that would look like what's shown on that picture in front of you. Both the panels, in addition to that, it's a little difficult to see, but the main door towards the left of that rendering, there'll be a small canopy that'll be installed over that.
Nice.
Both the canopy and the panel will be a dark bronze as shown on the screen in front of you. The wall signage that's shown, we still need to get further details, but Whirly Ball has agreed to comply with all the requirements of the sign code, including the maximum permitted size. The work is limited, again, just to this foyer area. So if the committee feels the facade renovation is appropriate, staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance amending Ordinance 2003-49, which is the ordinance that originally approved this facade, as amended, approving the changes subject to the renovation being substantially in accordance with the elevation drawings attached to your packet and presented to you tonight. And the owner of Whirly Ball is here to answer any questions that you may have.
You want to state your name for the record, please?
Sam Elias.
Yeah, okay. And you got the sample material there?
This will be installed this way, top to bottom, in this color. That matches the window frame, the
Yeah.
bronze. And so you'll have sort of a 3D effect. The idea is the faux brick that we put up, the warranty is not holding up the way it's supposed to, and
Yeah, is that what this picture represents, is that the facade is,
Falling
of
apart?
each individual brick is coming off?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there for 14 years, and it just didn't hold up the way the manufacturer said it wouldn't. We did a major interior renovation, I don't know if anyone's been in since, really updated the brand, the look and feel. It's more industrial chic kind of place, a lot of metal, a lot of wood. So this sort of ties the inside to the outside was the idea. And we're going to get rid of that ugly box sign and just put up
Whirly Ball.
the channel letters,
Nice.
the backlit channel letters. It's more in keeping with our new brand.
Motion to direct staff to prepare the ordinance?
Second.
Amending Ordinance 2003-49, approving the facade renovation presented to you tonight.
You said 2003-49, because in the packet it said like 83, I thought. I just want to make sure. we got-
Well, there were changes that were done to the facade in 2003
Okay.
that reflect what the building looks like today.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there's a motion.
There was a second.
You want a second? Roll call. You got it, Lynn?
Jim
I
was the
second it.
second.
You got the first?
Got it.
Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Akanaka?
Excuse me.
Aye.
Hebda?
Aye.
Schultz?
Aye.
Marport?
Aye.
Cook?
Aye.
Oppenheim?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you and good night.
Mayor and trustees and Commissioner Atkinson for your help.
Thank you.
Okay, Wendy's? Wendy's is coming. You want to state your name, please, for the record?
I'm James Rawlings
And who you with?
with Manna Incorporated. We are the parent company of Bridgman Foods, which owns the Wendy's in this market.
Yeah, and Chili's.
And Chili's, yes, most of the Chili's.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. Well, you want to start?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the screen in front of you is the location of Wendy's, which I think everyone knows where that's located, at the corner of Lakeview and Town Line Road. This is a picture of what Wendy's looks like today, which is the way it's looked like, I think for the last 15 or 20 years. Is
Longer than that.
Longer than that. So.
Probably, yeah.
And I think we all know what that looks like. Next, you'll see a color rendering of what's being proposed and what the board is being requested to consider tonight. As you can see, Wendy's is proposing to replace the existing curved fascia panels at the top of the wall with new architectural metal panels. These dark bronze panels will be positioned vertically and include a silver accent box at the top and bottom.
Actually, they'll be run horizontally.
Okay, I'm sorry, horizontally. You'll also note a matching dark bronze roof top screen panel that'll be installed around the perimeter of the building. That's that one that's a little higher than the lower panel. It replaces what was a curved panel there at the top as part of the original Wendy's. The front west elevation, which is shown at the bottom, would include a red architectural feature that also serves as the background for the wall signs. Wendy's will also be updating the wall signs on the south and west elevations, along with the panels on the existing monument sign. They've been advised that all signs, including the logos, must fully comply with the sign code. We're still waiting on more details on the size of the logos. They need to show that the height does not exceed the height of the letters, and the width does not exceed the width of any two letters, so we can verify compliance. They've been advised of that, and they've agreed that they're going to comply with that.
Right.
Please note also, as a condition of approval, Wendy's has agreed to restore and upgrade the landscaping and repair the parking and walking surfaces in accordance with village requirements. So for tonight, if the committee feels the facade renovation is appropriate, staff should be directed to prepare an ordinance approving the changes subject to the conditions outlined in your packet and in accordance with the drawings presented to you tonight, and a representative of Wendy's can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, trustee Schultz.
I'm noticing you got a lot of efflorescence in one of the piers there. What are you going to do with regard to the masonry that's there? Are you going to retuck point it and try and find out where you're getting moisture in there? Or?
Yes, we generally try to address those issues. A lot of times, when we have those issues, if we have moisture issues and problems, we try to resolve them during these refreshes. Sometimes it's a maintenance thing that, we have to address as well. But
Going to put a new roof on it too, then? That's typically where.
yeah, I don't, I mean, I'm not sure how old the roof is right now. We have to evaluate that. I don't think the roof is in all that bad a shape, from the pictures we had up there.
Do you actually own the land, the whole triangle there?
Yes, it's under mortgage, and we got a mortgage on it, so,
Yeah,
yeah, we own it though.
a lot of people got mortgages.
Right, it's not leased though, no.
No, okay. And I'll ask staff, and is there any sense, are we doing a sidewalk?
Are we speaking about the widening of the sidewalk in connection with the widening of the right-of-way?
Well, oh, you mean when we do it? I mean, when we
Yeah.
do this road project?
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm just.
Well, there's a sidewalk, on just one side of the street?
There's actually a berm on there, so it might be difficult.
Yeah,
so.
okay, so there's no way to
I don't-
do any sidewalk work there?
I think it would be difficult, and I think we could maybe get an answer better prepared for you with Director of Public Works Brown.
Yeah, okay, fine. All right, that's okay. All right, and what else you got?
That's probably.
Mike, anything else?
No, that's it. It's, the staff is supportive of the update. I've seen this concept in other locations, gotten out of my car and gotten a good look at it, and I think it is a big improvement over what is currently there. So staff is supportive of what's being requested tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I went out and looked at a few, and so motion to direct staff to prepare the ordinance subject to the conditions?
Yes, sir.
Second it.
Motion is second. Question, I know we haven't done it for a while, but as far as actually putting, a sign out there for activities at, Big Bear, Little Bear Lake, like summer celebration, are we still doing any of that? At this location or anything, or could we? No.
Yeah.
Are we going across the road with a banner or something? What do we, just the flags?
It's just the flags. Sometimes we put some banners on poles, but we haven't put anything up here since the light show closed. So.
Okay, that was, yeah, all right, that's right. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustees Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Verizon. Are they here, or?
They're here, Mr. Mayor, and I can
Well, you
give,
might as well come up to the presentation altar.
thank you, and I can give you a quick summary of what's being requested tonight. On the screen in front of you shows us the specific location of a light fixture that the village owns within our right-of-way, and that's generally located at the northwest intersection of Aspen Drive and Hawthorne Parkway.
Bless you.
God bless somebody. Who was that?
It looks like they, okay.
What's being requested tonight is an antenna that would be approximately 30 inches in height that would be located on top of the village's 30-foot tall light pole. The antenna, as you can see on the rendering in front of you, would not exceed the height of the mast arm supporting the light fixture. And you can see what it looks like in front of you. The equipment, including the radio units, solar shields, and disconnects, are mounted to the pole. And what's shown here, you can see where those equipment is located pretty much in the middle of the pole, in the middle between the grade and the overall height of the pole. Another option for locating the equipment is shown here, where they have the equipment way up at the top of the pole. And then a third option, you can see the equipment now has been relocated to the ground adjacent to the pole. So Verizon is requesting consideration of the village allowing this small cell site with the equipment on our light pole. And this would be achieved through a master license agreement, which is what Verizon is requesting the village enter into. The agreement would establish specific terms and conditions such as access, lease rights, permits, insurance, decommissioning, and the like. The master license agreement would also be used as a basis for future small cell site requests with or without the need to come back to the village board. That would be at the village board's direction. We can require they come back for each one, or we can do a master license agreement that actually would control future small cell site locations within the village. We'll let the board direct us on that. And just as a reminder, I'm sure everyone on the board is aware that there's a pending bill in the state legislature that would severely limit the municipality's authority to regulate small cell sites. SB 1451, which is sponsored by Senator Link, creates the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act. I included a summary of where the state is at with this legislature. And Illinois being what it is, really nothing is ever given, but we do continue to hear that the bill will probably be approved during the spring 2018 session. And the good news is that if it is approved and there's existing leases in place, such as this one, those existing leases would be grandfathered. That draft language is currently in there. We anticipate that it would stay in there, but again, we're talking about Illinois. So for tonight, we're just a concept presentation, so this is an opportunity for the board to give feedback, generally speaking, on small cell site locations within the village. And if the board determines that further research and consideration is appropriate, then staff should be prepared to do a couple of things. First of all, working with the village attorney, prepare a master license agreement that would include language, as I reviewed with you earlier, and then second, to prepare right-of-way, site, and zoning regulations that would control how and where these small cell sites could be located within our right-of-way. The draft zoning regulations would be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission to be considered as part of a public hearing, and then their recommendation for the regulations, along with the village attorney's recommendation for language within the master license agreement, would then come back to the village board for final review and determination. But again, this is just concept presentation. Here tonight is Mike Howley, who can answer a lot of questions for you as far as what these small cell sites do, how they support data capacity of all the new devices that are coming into the market, and he can also give you some insight on what he knows about where the state of Illinois is with their pending legislation. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board and to Mike Howley.
Thank you, Mike. First of all, good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable board members, and staff. My name is Mike Howley, and I'm representing Verizon Wireless on the matter before you. As Mike summarized very nicely, Verizon is currently selected a location for what's called a small cell, what it terms a small cell. And just, and I'll try to be brief on the technology part of things, but as you know, you have a cell tower outside your village hall, at the Public Works, on water tanks, no doubt. Those are considered in wireless technology parlance macro sites. Those are macro wireless facilities. This is not going to replace those facilities. Those facilities, which I know the village receives a nice stream of revenue from, are going to remain the backbone of all wireless carriers' networks. What the small cells are going to do is they're going to complement those macro site locations. And what they're going to do is within, and this is a technology that has been long talked about but has never been able to properly be implemented into an existing wireless carrier's network without causing interference. It used to be where if two sites were too close to one another, those sites, the signal would interfere with one another, and that's why you had to have proper spacing between sites. What engineers have been able to work out is to make these small cell sites work within the area of coverage of a macro site. So for instance, your cell tower here, if Verizon, I don't recall if Verizon is, but if Verizon were on the cell tower, it would be providing wireless service in, let's say, a half mile in each direction. We would be able to place, Verizon would be able to strategically place small cells within that half mile of coverage in areas that are known or identified to have capacity problems. And what that means is if you have a lot of folks, say in a residential area, it's estimated that roughly 60% of residents have cut the cord on a landline phone. So you've got mom and dad and kids and grandma and grandpa who are now streaming video, and it's putting a lot of a stress on a wireless network. So in areas like that, what you have is a small cell like this one that can be placed in that location that can provide that capacity boost in the times of high rate of usage. As Mike had mentioned, one of the interesting elements of this right now, and as far as small cells are concerned, is that there's pending legislation. In many states, legislation has already been passed, which I'll say removes a lot of the authority of the local governing municipality or jurisdiction, whether it's a county or a township. That's under review right now. It was actually somewhat of a surprise that the legislation didn't pass in last year's legislative session. The belief is that it's going to pass fairly soon. We don't know if the language is going to change, but as Mike had mentioned, right now there is grandfathering language that says if there's existing agreements in place, those agreements will remain and be recognized. What Verizon, right now Verizon has one site, so this is it's identified in Vernon Hills, and what's happened in other jurisdictions that have said, you know what, we want to move forward with this and we want to negotiate a master agreement with you, Verizon, is that once an agreement is in place, then Verizon engineers will then look at the jurisdiction and start to identify, possibly will start to identify other locations within that jurisdiction, because they know that the framework is there. They don't need to look. They have the ability to go on, in this case, a municipally owned light pole. The agreement's in place. A lot of these agreements still leave complete discretion to the jurisdiction on the location and whether they ultimately will approve it. Now, it's done administratively, but as an example, in this case, I know we're at the very preliminary stages of things, but in working, when I approached the village probably well over a year ago to introduce the small cell technology, and as we were identifying the location that we wanted to be, this location was actually on Aspen Drive, and then in working with village staff, they asked if Verizon engineers might be able to consider this location on Hawthorne. They felt that that was a more suitable location for a variety of reasons, aesthetically perhaps, but that was their preference. So I went back to the Verizon engineers, and we were able to move that site. And that's largely how these master agreements would take place. As an example, we just reached a master agreement with DuPage County, where the first handful of sites were identified, and now that we have a master agreement in place, not only is Verizon, are they at the stage of getting close to constructing sites, but the radio frequency engineers are identifying locations within the county of county-owned right-of-way infrastructure for possible small cell installations. I keep looking at this picture above you, and I don't necessarily have a stock presentation per se, but I do want to note that the cabinet that's on the ground can be painted black. It can be painted any color. I know it sticks out.
So these two come together.
Hmm?
They, what?
The antenna. and the
Yeah,
back.
there's,
Oh, they come together? So you have to have the cabinet and the antenna?
Except
yes, in this, there were three different proposals that we provided. The first, and it's been about 50-50 in terms of jurisdictions, what they prefer. Some jurisdictions like the cabinets on the ground, that's where the cabinets would hold the radio units that control the small cell. And then coaxial cable is routed from the cabinets through the middle of the pole up to the antennas.
Can we go back to one of the pictures that showed the carrier? The cabinet can actually be on the pole though, too.
Yeah, that's correct. The radios, so we have another example of the radios where there's nothing on the ground and all the radios are on the pole at different heights. We have one that the radios are all clustered near the top of the pole, and then one that's in the middle,
Yeah,
all painted black.
Well, do you know going forward, how many of these you would need in town?
The middle.
We don't. But what has happened is there's an initial number of sites, and then as an agreement is in place, that's when the radio frequency engineers, in general, will identify additional sites, and there'll be the next so-called wave of small cell locations.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah. I don't know, what does everybody want to do? Trustee Schultz?
I guess, first off, trustee Takaoka and myself need to take the blame because I have a granddaughter and he has children that are probably Snapchatting and Instagramming like crazy. Yeah, about 100 feet away from that tower. So with that being said, I don't have a problem putting it, I guess I kind of like the mid-pole that gives your maintenance techs the ability to get to it with a relatively short extension ladder. I don't like the unit on the ground. It's subject to snowplow incidents and/or just blowing snow up on it and things of that nature. It's pretty close to the curb. So, yeah, I think, yeah, if you can get them on the poles, all the tower or all the equipment at that mid-range, and then the antenna itself up at the top, yeah, I really don't have a problem. I'd like to see us get into a master agreement now rather than later. And I'd like to bring in the other providers at the same time if at all possible.
Yeah, question, with the tree behind this, which is clever,
Yeah.
you can't really tell the mass of the pole. I mean, the pole's twice as, you understand what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah, no, I
So
understand.
what,
They don't get, the pole itself, obviously the pole would
Attached to the pole.
be replaced at Verizon's cost. They would, what we do is we'll work with your pole manufacturer, and they will help design a pole that can handle this loading. That's what we've done in other towns, especially with I guess I'll call this a more decorative pole.
But this is the one.
But the new poles don't actually get that much wider. Yeah, so visually, this would be accurate.
I did it in one of the pictures.
And we don't need to take down those trees due to interference. No, it's not like a satellite dish.
Correct.
So,
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Doc.
so are the other carriers going to ask for the same thing? And are we going to have one of these on every pole between all the different carriers? Or do you use the same technology that you would share? Or how does
Yeah,
that
it
work?
wouldn't be shared. Each carrier has a different, I'll say, a different capital improvement focus, so I can't obviously speak for them, but other carriers are deploying small cell technology right now, and especially with what we call 5G approaching, you're going to have a lot of small cells. Municipalities throughout this region are going to have a lot of small cells in the right of way.
How many carriers are there now?
There's 4 major
Four
carriers,
Four.
yeah.
So is there going to be a race now to get your
No,
small cells? And
I want to ask a question on the antique lights we have. How is this going to look on both?
Well,
Limit them to these, the shoebox.
yeah, we can limit them to these.
Control? We
Yeah,
could,
yeah, right now we do, because the state hasn't passed anything yet.
okay,
But
well-
as of today, we do. And as far as the decorative light fixtures, there always is the option in a residential area, depending on the particular circumstances, where they could locate a pole that's similar to what the county put up for the repeaters for the water meters, where it's an individual pole, it's probably about that wide, and it's put in an inconspicuous location in a residential neighborhood, so they're not interfering with our decorative street light poles.
okay. But you're going to have, yeah, okay. Well, any way you slice it, I mean, you're going to see, we don't have any idea what the state legislature is going to do, so you could have these 4 and 5 to a street or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with what the state is drafting up, that's possible, yeah. I mean,
Well,
because
is
it
this
severely
going back
limits
to
what
the-
we could
to
do.
the technology, which was the black box at one time, you're going back years ago, where you're going to be able to put it on the, the light pole on your street, and then, everybody would get everybody could go into orbit together, So, okay, well, yeah, all right, well, so what are we doing tonight?
Well, if
mean-
what we're looking for, a couple things. First of all, just general consensus on which option the board prefers, as far as equipment at mid-height, equipment at the top of the pole, or ground-mounted equipment, just a general consensus. And then, if the board wishes to pursue this further, then direct staff to work with the village attorney to come up with draft language for a master license agreement, and then also to come up with draft zoning and site language that we could put in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing. This information would then come back to the board at a later date for further review and consideration.
But these light poles are 31 feet. What are on the side streets, this is a collector. They're not as tall.
They're not that tall, no.
So are they going to want to put them on there too?
Not on a decorative light pole, no.
No. I'm talking just in front of my house.
Oh, well, it's
So
possible.
that you got 9 feet shorter.
Probably stay pretty much to, that's one of the things we could manage.
Well,
with,
that's
is
what I'm
that
asking.
It would probably stay, we'd probably want to stay more with collector streets.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think what we could do is ask their technical people to kind of address that issue. Is there a height issue?
Right.
Does it need to be this high, or can it be at a lower height and work off the existing poles in those neighborhoods?
Yeah,
So-
because, you're going to have giant hornets nests and shit in this stuff, right? And you'll come out and get rid of it, right?
I won't, but yeah, somebody will.
Yeah, come on. You know what I mean? I don't, we might as well limit these to, the collector streets if we can do that,
We could do whatever the board directs us to do.
Yeah, well, there's a direction.
Okay. And
Okay, Trustee Cook.
Yeah, I am fine with either of the ones mounted on the pole. I like the mid one the best. I do not like the ground mounted for a lot of obvious reasons. But otherwise, it's the way it's going. I mean, that's why it's called LTE,
And these are installed in what towns right now?
Well, they're installed on a lot of ComEd utility poles right now throughout, you name the towns.
So you'll be
I-
doing that too?
yeah, I did a little research. I know Wheaton, Hinsdale, River Forest, Evergreen Park, and Schaumburg so far has passed these kind of
But these
requirements.
are not on any poles anywhere yet, or no?
Yeah, these are.
On light poles, is your,
Yeah, each style's a little, each style's a little different, but yeah, small cells are on light poles, on municipal light.
why don't somebody take a ride and take some real pictures?
We'll do,
you know?
yeah.
And try not to hide anything behind a tree.
Understood.
Okay.
And, I should clarify too, when we look at these regulations, we're gonna look at regulations for light poles in parking lots and retail districts. Great location, it's farther away from the street, probably more inconspicuous, so we'll take a look at that as well.
Yeah. Okay, trustee Hebda.
Right, my initial reaction is not the one on the bottom of the ground.
Okay.
I don't necessarily love the other two options, but I know it's needed, but I also want to say that we put the regulations in now before the state approves something, so we have control over where you can and cannot put them. Because we have a lot of decorative streetlights. We've got some residential with these shoebox lights that are low, and I think we're gonna get every resident knocking in here saying, what'd you do to my streetscape when I looked at this?
Well, we
Although,
got more shoe boxes than anything.
right, so that
What do we
would
got in
be,
inventory?
that would be my response, Mike, and I would love to see some actual pictures of the three methods that you showed, so we can look at those without, at least to see how, I hate to use the word obnoxious, but how obnoxious this is gonna look, so,
Yeah.
because it really will impact the streetscape.
We can get you real-life
Yeah,
photos
that
of
would
what
be
they look
helpful,
like.
so.
Yeah, well, is our inventory of our streetlights we own and maintain a little over 4,000? Yeah. Or is it, maybe it's too, oh, well, okay. But, and then the light poles all over, the private property in the retail, there's gotta be hundreds of them.
Oh, yeah, and there's good opportunity there to provide what
Yeah,
cell
okay.
providers need. Yeah.
The box on the ground, the actual cabinet, does it have more capacity to handle more, Netflix and all the other stuff than what's gonna go on the
No,
light pole?
they're the same.
They're the same.
They are,
Yeah.
okay. But that's a bigger, heavier device?
I think it just looks, it's 48 inches by 48 inches and about 25 inches wide.
Yeah.
But obviously, when it's not painted black, it sticks out.
So you'd rather hit the light pole with your car than that thing?
Yeah, I guess so. You're right.
What a pole will break away,
Yeah.
okay. All right, what else tonight? I mean, what else we doing tonight?
I think I'm hearing the board tell me that they prefer the equipment on the pole. Am I hearing mid-height or?
Mid-height unless
Okay.
it's the shoebox, or the residential shoebox that's shorter, then it necessarily would have to go up higher.
If I may, if I may not have answered your question accurately before about the tree, a carrier would be less interested in the lower light pole because this is still a line of sight technology. So that antenna needs to be up high enough to provide service to that immediate area. So I know there's concern about the lower, I don't know the exact height of the lower lamp posts or light poles.
Well,
that we have.
even the decorative ones are shorter, some of them, aren't they? They're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
all the same height.
No, they're nowhere near the 31 feet, of course.
Yeah, okay, all right, well, can we carve that out at some point in time, that you're not gonna be doing it on the 20-foot poles?
Yeah,
or-
if that's what the board's directing, we can make sure that's in the regulations and the
All
agreement.
right,
Yeah.
all right, somebody call Link.
But within 10 years, this technology will all be micro.
10?
Yeah,
Well, I know it's the 18 months,
all right.
but I'm figuring 10 years to get it really down to where it fits inside the pole, so.
Okay, anything else on this one? All right, I guess we'll see you again sometime, right?
Yeah, we'll go to work on it and bring it back.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next is adjournment. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn committee of the whole and go into closed session for the discussion of land acquisition? We will not come out and conduct any other business at committee or board.
And we'll also be approving minutes pursuant to Section 2C21 of the Open Meetings
Yeah.
Act.
Okay,
Can I ask a question first
yeah.
before we go? I'm curious about the flags that are out in front of various restaurants and other facilities. And I was under the impression that those were not allowed. What's that? About sales and things? It seems like every now and then there'll be like 50 of them all over the place. And I wasn't sure if that really was allowed or not allowed, and who handles that, and what's the
Yeah,
issue?
the village's sign code allows each establishment to have a banner sign up to 50 square feet and to display it up to 30 calendar days per year. Not all of our businesses comply with that requirement all the time. We can have our code enforcement officer go through the retail areas and verify if there's anyone
And
that's
that's,
displaying
and
a
that's
banner.
one sign per business, or are they allowed to have 6
Well,
of them?
Yeah, if you could have one 50 square foot banner, if someone came to us and said we'd rather have two 25 square foot banners, we'd allow that, but they can't have the multiple signs that we most traditionally see from mattress stores during
Yeah.
their Labor Day sales
Yeah.
and such. So we'll look and make sure our businesses are in compliance now. And just so you know, in the past, we've been sending letters out to the mattress stores, letting them know of the regulations. We've asked the police department to get involved on weekends to help with enforcement, and they've done a really good job the last couple of holidays getting them to relocate the signs or remove the signs as needed. We'll keep chasing it down, and we'll keep doing the best we can. But the businesses aren't always complying with that requirement.
And I also saw one of those type of stores that you'd mentioned, the one next to Chuck E. Cheese, had actual signs that looked like yard signs in the parking lot. There were like 5 of them right
Yeah,
there.
that's what they do, and they like to line them all up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If we see them in our right-of-way, we just take them. Sometimes we'll work with the shopping center or mall owners, like Inland or whoever happens to own that property, to get down on the tenants as well and kind of team up on them that way. Sometimes we can get permission from the landlords to just go ahead and take the signs. And like I said, it's an ongoing issue that we'll continue to track as best we can.
In honor of Barbara Williams, there's a first student employee hiring sign on Westmoreland at the far west end. I know Joe sees it every day because Joe and I pass each other on Westmoreland.
Where's that? What intersection is it at?
At the far west end.
I'll pick it up on the way home.
Yeah, not quite at 83. It's past Old Grove Farm, whatever. So it's east of there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, that's why we need the drone.
Yeah, the drone would keep track of these.
But we don't.
They
we
couldn't
didn't
hide.
we didn't take the offer for the liability insurance yet, correct?
That's correct, sir.
When are we going to discuss that? I don't really need to discuss it. We ought to just take it. No, this is for our, Will's got an FAA approved license. I don't know. Put it on the
Mayor,
agenda, great, sure.
The renewal for insurance will come before the board. We're planning for October, so
Yeah.
if you'd like, we could discuss it at that time.
Well, Will's drone is grounded right now, right?
He's not using that until the board makes a decision on coverage and how we'd like to use it going forward.
By the way, do we inspect low-life developers' signs? I do that with Mr. Henley here. They have, Mid-America or whoever it is
Right,
has their, space available, and half the time the signs are in decrepit shape or whatever, or they've been there for 10 years. Isn't there a life expectancy and/or, a renewal process to get those signs?
Currently, there's not a renewal process. There can be. We could have a shopping center like Hawthorne Square that has many spaces, and as long as they have one vacant space,
Well, here, why don't we just
They
put
can have
this
the-
on a committee, the whole
Yes.
agenda? Come on,
Yes.
So we got a motion and a second to go into closed
No, we
session.
don't.
We don't have either. This discussion if we had, because that would have all been ordered.
Oh, that was my mistake. Okay.
We need a
Is there a
second.
motion to
There you go.
go
Second.
into closed session
You're,
for litigation and approval of, closed session minutes.
Property acquisition and approval of minutes.
There you go. Motion, we got a motion and a second?
yes.
Okay, roll call.
Trustees Markwart,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Hebda,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good night.
I thought I did.
You know, it's very,